This is a great time to be a student at Northeast Texas Community College. Unlike 40 years ago, where there was a tremendous information disparity between those in Ivy League schools or better universities and a community college like NTCC, the World Wide Web has evened up the score. Hi, I'm Andrew Yox. I'm thankful to be the honors director at Northeast Texas Community College, but also a history professor. And I think there's some news here that all of you students taking history might want to note, and that is that your research paper, one time in the past kind of considered just kind of a grim formality that you had to get through, can be a really positive stepping stone for your career and can do all kinds of things in terms of opening up pathways for your improvement and your advancement. I say that papers are important. I believe that in the age of information, that whenever you obtain expertise, you can leverage that. You can make something of it for your career. And that's why I encourage you, like in your papers for history, to do something that might even be tied into your career, because you can become a specialist, you can talk about it. In our age of erudition, in our age of information, I should say, yes, erudition, as I noted in my booklet, erudition, that is the study of the facts of history, is still very important, but it is paled in contrast with scholarship. Our students have published over 25 essays in the last few years, just in this journal alone, as well as other journals as well, and publication is an amazing possibility. But what it signals is expertise. You know what made Mark Zuckerberg great in the age of information? Expertise. He didn't have a lot of money to start Facebook. He had expertise, which means that you have that special kind of information in the information age that makes you sought after by other people, that makes the knowledge that you have important. Because there's some types of information and knowledge that's more important, way more important, because it's more special than other people's. Just to kind of give you a brief show of what this has meant for some of our students, we had a student arrive to us in Mount Pleasant a few years ago. His name is Carlos Mendez. He lived in a garage with his father in Mount Pleasant, kind of concrete floor, aluminum siding. He was very busy, was working a lot. We didn't know if he was going to make it very well, but he ended up writing a story about Henry Cisneros, a mayor of San Antonio, celebrity mayor. And this celebrity mayor invited him into his home, gave him a home in San Antonio, helped oversee his engineering education at the University of Texas at San Antonio. This celebrity mayor that Carlos from Mount Pleasant wrote about gave Carlos $400 a month to complete his education, because he was delighted that Carlos had obtained expertise in Cisneros's ideals about the city. And Cisneros had become a HUD director under President Clinton. And today, Carlos is not only a very well-paid engineer at VisionWorks, one of the great retail outlets for eyewear in our country, but he was recognized by former President George Bush in this book, out of the one many that our former president from 2001 to 2008 just published. Now, this is just one example. We've had 10 Jack Kent Cooke winners from Northeast Texas Community College in recent years. These are winners of a $120,000 exclusive transfer scholarship. There are only 50 given out in the nation, but in every case, they did a history paper. So I would maintain that if you can gain expertise in your research paper, that is, you can gain that special kind of information and knowledge that matters in the information age, you can leverage that. You can optimize it. You can make it work for you in some way. Maybe in an interview. Maybe a professor will write a great recommendation letter for you based on what you did. Maybe that will give you some idea as to where you can better find your niche in life, because there are all sorts of new occupations that are opening up everywhere. And it's actually with those new pathways, those new doorways where really the opportunity lies. And again, I'm thinking of this Scott Wesson. I just had the opportunity to meet this senior vice president for this big Colorado forum who's financing a scholarship for our students. He just got into he didn't know a lot about computers, but he knew a lot about history and about trends, and envision a way where you could eliminate apartment personnel and substitute it with apps. And he just applied himself and has done very well in life. So there's all kinds of ways in which you can make a difference in our life, but one of the ways you can start off is by gaining this traction, this experience of becoming the expert. And so this is why I wrote this little booklet and try to give it out to you free. And so I certainly encourage you to read it. I would also note that in this folder that I have here in Blackboard, this little talk that I'm giving, I also have some other videos about how to write a thesis-driven paper and what's the difference between primary and secondary sources that I think you'll find very helpful and that I would encourage you to see as well. But in this little video, I would like, though, to say why I do some of the things that I do in class. And again, I assure you, it's because I'm very excited for you and for your possibilities. And so I hope that you'll get excited about the research paper. Please note, you will receive some mentoring from me. Please note, there are all kinds of mentors here at NTCC that we can take advantage of. Please note that our librarians, Ron and Heather, are very helpful should you ever run into any kind of situation where you feel kind of stalled, paralyzed. So, you've got a real opportunity here at your fingertips. You've got a system at our college that puts you, the student number one, unlike in universities where that just does not happen. And then you've got a chance to cash in on the university age. As my pamphlet makes clear, the state of Texas is helping us with this endeavor because they have made the number 1 and 2 objectives in all history classes to be very much targeted on this new kind of research essay. The number 1 objective of the state of Texas for you taking this history course is that you form a creative argument. Just what we want. The number 2 is that you distinguish between primary and secondary sources and that you use them in your paper. Primary sources are first-hand accounts by contemporaries about events that they saw or knew. It can be photographs, it can be artifacts, old newspaper articles. Secondary accounts are usually by experts. So if you know the world expert in your field, and it's probably written in English, by the way, and I would suggest you use Google Books for that. Find the world expert in whatever it is you're writing about. Challenge that world expert, and suddenly your paper will acquire a tremendous value. And you say, well, I can't possibly do that, just as a student. But we've been proving that wrong time and time again. As I said, we have published 25 articles in this journal alone, which is one of the most prominent state journals, but also most prominent undergraduate journals in the nation. Since the early 1980s, Touchstone has been published. It's a real cloth journal with very fine quality articles, and each one for the last few years we've gotten a lot of NTC student publications, something that you could do as well. Now, one thing that kind of, I think, maybe puzzles some of the students in this pursuit is that I assign weekly homeworks. And this is to help you to become as proactive as possible so that you don't feel mugged, when you're asked to do a trial draft. So you're doing things kind of cumulatively, on the way, so you know that you're kind of caught up. One of the homework that I assign is ideophony. It is actually a created word at NTCC, but it also is a Greek combination of prefix and suffix. It refers to the appearance of the idea. Nothing is better than if you have a final idea to suggest. An idea is a concept of concepts that suggests a plan of action. I think our greatest idea, well, the idea that attained the most prominence of any student here at NTCC was something that appeared at National Public Radio. In 2016, it was Morgan Capps' work on the symbiotic supercouple of Ma and Pa Ferguson, two governors of Texas. And she called them a symbiotic supercouple. She was taking biology at the time. She imported that term, analog, we call analog, of symbiotic, into her concept. And it becomes an idea, symbiotic supercouple, because not only did she present the story about how these two really corrupt co-governors of Texas, both Ma and Pa were governors of Texas, but that how they really worked together. And Ma provided moral cover for Pa, who was really quite a scoundrel. But Ma was constantly getting him off because she was kind of squeaky clean, or seemed squeaky clean by contrast. So how they kind of worked together. And the whole mission of her paper was clear when she had her idea of symbiotic supercouple, that these two were always going to work for one another, whether success or failure, through success and failure. And so it also suggested a kind of idea that is a plan, or idea that we could use in our own life. Would you like to get married to someone who might try to do your same job and do it with double the power, double, it's a live option. In other words, you read an article, you get something that inspires you that you could do for your life. That's a true idea. By contrast, a concept is simply a very terse answer to a question. All scholarship proceeds through questions. You may not be a good writer. You may not have hitherto exhibited great erudition or A's on tests. But if you are curious like a child, and you ask a lot of questions, you're going to do great. Now, I said that I have these exercises, the weekly exercises, to kind of keep you proactively always where we need to be. So that when you get the rough draft, it doesn't feel like you're being mugged. When you get the final draft, you're ready for it. Just helping you keep in pace. So weekly, for non-honors students, it's 150 words. For honors students, it's actually 300 words a week. And for those taking a hybrid course, it's 300 words a week, because you hybrid students are actually collapsing 2 weeks worth into 1 week. So honors students and hybrid students have to do 2 ideophonies a week on 1 file that you turn in, whereas those of you taking the 16-week course and non-honors only need to do 1 ideophony, that is a 150-word essay every week. Although if you want to do an honors project, and if you would like a more article-ready paper, I will certainly work for you, and you can get the same kind of credit as an honors student, say for a 12 to 15 page paper in the end, over 3,000 words rather than 1,000 words. Well, whether you're doing 1 or 2 ideophonies a week, that is 150 words or 300 words, I have these kind of proactive requests that you do on each of these ideophonies. And again, this is to make you feel certain that you're going in the right path, so I can give you feedback, so you can be proactive, so you can be on top of things and not feel that you're ever behind. If you do this every week. And there are 5 elements of this ideophony, of this exercise, that will hopefully reveal the idea that's going to make your paper so special. First one, ask a question. The greatest invention in the world was Charlemagne's theologian Alcuin, who invented the question mark in the 8th century. This led to the modern university. We know that in the Bible, all kinds of questions. Jesus even says, ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find. It's so simple, and yet much of the world hates questions. In fact, there's a branch of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, that actually feels questions are evil. Nevertheless, our whole information age and knowledge rests on the ability to ask questions. No more important human quality to have than curiosity in all of this. So your ideophony is going to ask a question. You could do it in bold red. I give some examples, 3 examples in this book, The Promise of Student Scholarship. You can see them in the middle. 150 words, question. 10 specifics. What do I mean by specifics? I mean details that are singular, apt, and out of the ordinary. If you're talking about schools, nations, peoples, those kind of vague words, those aren't specifics. I mean specific dates. 1542. Melchior Shamlofel was a name that I encountered in my research, and that caused me to say, okay, how do you spell Melchior Shamlofel? Sometimes specifics are words that you got to do a double take on. If you're doing the Edict of Nantes or something, some historical event, such as the Compromise of 1850, otherwise known as the California Compromise. Sometimes you just have to look that up. What date was that again? But you want to get 10 specifics because you want your final essay to glitter with specifics. Try doing an interview and just saying vague terms. You will not get the job, or at least if it's not as important job. But try doing an interview where you sound informed and you're giving, highly specified words that have a lot of traction with your business, and you will do great. So 150 words essay for each ideophony. You have a question. You have 10 specifics in each ideophony. Each ideophony also then will have a citation. And there's examples of endnote citations in each of the 3 ideophonies in the booklet. But I will also try to give you a sheet of this. Chances are there's one in the syllabus. Standard endnotes. Most scholars, even Wikipedia now uses endnotes. And by the way, I do encourage you to use Wikipedia because of the efficiency of toggling around there. Don't ever cite Wikipedia, but you can always use the sources that Wikipedia itself cites. This is why Wikipedia in our new age is so much more valuable than Encyclopedia Britannica used to be in the old age when you had to look at these cumbersome books. And it never really pays to cite an encyclopedia. That is, you never put an encyclopedia in your endnotes unless it's a very specialized encyclopedia. But again, Wikipedia is great because it leads you to the sources, and you can check it out whether Wikipedia is lying or not from there, if you want to. Finally, what is a concept again? I would like to see that at the end of your essay. You could put it a raised word in bold. A concept is simply a terse answer to your question. At one point, Morgan Capps, whose expression symbiotic supercouple appeared on National Public Radio as a student from NTCC, giving our college at least some momentary notice in a national audience. And incidentally, her paper on Ma and Pa Ferguson made sense because it was an election year in 2016 with Hillary Clinton running, and people were comparing the Fergusons and their corruption to corruption they saw with the Clintons. But in any case, what Morgan Capps asked our student was, what made the relationship of Ma and Pa exceptional? How do you describe it? That was her question. And I'm not even sure if she, answered it in her ideophony all that well, but she went on and thought about it and came up with a better concept. So if you've got the time, I certainly encourage you to go to this 5th stage. They have an artful concept. The way you get that is through thesaurus.com. Look at the meanings of words. There's a kind of inner poetry in all scholarship. And this is where it becomes fun because you can play with words like a child plays with toys. Just try new word combinations out, and you too can come up with something like symbiotic supercouple. Sometimes a concept that you get in ideophony is so good that we say, look, you've just got to base that as your paper, as the most winsome part of your paper. Well, there's a lot more we can learn. One of the most important things is how we can signal in our essay through, say, a 12-page paper or a 5-page paper. Signal the thesis or the main idea, the concept of concepts, or maybe it's just a concept that's motoring the whole essay. And I'm going to have another video on that will later on be in this folder. But in any case, I hope you can see why I feel this excitement about you and your research project. I hope you will email me or see me whenever if you run into problems with this. And so I think it's a really exciting time for you, and I hope that you will certainly capitalize on the opportunities that you have.